Okay, I'm back again. And let's see if I can get you up here. Okay. There you are. I'm going to Facebook. And let's see if he's going to dial in. There you are. Okay. Sometimes you have to. I got to get the public change. Okay, now we're back on time. Now it's working. Let's get this up here. And all right. So let's get this up here. Okay. And see how small this print is. See why I have to have it build up on this pedestal. So that looks pretty clear. That looks pretty clear. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Hill, Mars Hill, that is, here in good old Naptown, Indianapolis, Indiana. The Nap is short for Indianapolis, in case you haven't heard. Old truck driver term when you used to drive. I used to drive on the road. I'm coming in off the road and I'm getting near Naptown. That's 465. So 465 is home. It's the area that goes around our city, circles it. I live in the southwest part. And a beautiful place for me and Christy, my wife. It's Manchester Village. And we just love it because it's, here it is, you ready for it? Affordable for right now. And so, one time Christy and I thought we was going to move to Florida, and but we just couldn't get things settled, so I ended up not moving there. And so I'm here. Ha ha ha. Well, anyway, I had a good talk with my sister, honey. My sister named Mary. She's an author. She's on her first book called Eclair, and she just told me a terrible story. She was working on her second book off a laptop, and somehow or another the laptop crashed, and she lost all of that work, all of that thinking, putting it down, whatever it takes to write a book, I don't know, but she lost all of it. That must have been heartbreaking. I had that happened to me, back in the 80s when I had my ministries in Atlanta. I had a big, pretty cool ministry in Atlanta, Georgia. It was called Harvest House for the Homeless, Inner City Ministries. And just like it sounds, there were multiple ministries there. I won't go into it, but my first wife, Kat, and I got a divorce, and things just went downhill from there. Somehow I ended up here back in good old Naptown with my present honey right now, my beloved Christy. So anyway, I hope you're doing okay this morning. And I'm on my first cup, like I said. I got my teeth brushed and my teeth in and my hair combed. And I went in there and washed up a little bit, like I do every morning. Probably you do too. I guess some of you are going out on the road, go to work, and may the Lord strengthen your day. You might have a situation where you can work and listen to the internet or watch it. Then again, they might need you full time on your duties for your hands and everything like that. So there we go. There's another view. I had a little hard time getting it focused. I got that light in the background, but I hope you don't mind it. I don't mind it. I got some other lights I bought to fix the good lighting, but I think that's good enough. So what we're getting ready to get into here is Jacob and his sons in Egypt from my little book called, show it to you. There's the camera. Okay. "4,000 Questions and Answers." I've been going through this book pretty regular, and that's 4,000 questions, and so I won't keep you long. But I'm going down through these questions, and it gives you a review about what the topic is. You haven't, and then so I've been going down from Genesis. We went from Genesis to Noah, and to Noah to Abraham, and Abraham to Isaac and Jacob, and so now we're in where Joseph, one of Isaac's 12 boys, his 12 boys, and one of the 12 sons of Israel, he gets a dream from God. He didn't know it's from God, but he just told the dream, got him in trouble with his family, and the brothers ended up selling him into slavery to the Midianites, a caravan going up to Egypt, and from that point, Joseph got out of the caravan, a stranger in a strange land, but he wasn't with God. He stayed faithful to God, and he went to Potiphar, who was affiliated with Pharaoh, his chief something, or I don't know what it was, and so he starts working on Potiphar's house, and it started prospering because God was with him. And then it got to the point where he made him the chief foreman, basically, over all Potiphar's house and his possessions. And that's where the bad news came in. Potiphar's wife was a little promiscuous, and she had the hots for, I guess you could say, I'm sorry to say that word, but that's what it was for Joseph. It was a total lust, of course, spied by the devil. And she wanted to have sex with him, and he said no. And so she finally got embarrassed and framed him for a rape charge. He ended up in jail. And in jail, he got in charge of the jail because everybody liked his work. And so it was a political jail for Pharaoh's particular prisoners. And during that time, he encountered two men from the king's court. And that would be the butler and the, I forget the other guy, the baker, not the candlestick maker. So while they were in prison, both had a dream, and Joseph interpreted the dream and told him what it meant. One meant that the butler would get out, but unfortunately for the baker, the dream he was going to be hanged on Pharaoh's birthday, and that's what happened. So a couple of years later, at the timing of the Lord, God gives Pharaoh a dream. And he's troubled by this dream, like so many kings and pharaohs back in their day were. And so God had the butler tell Pharaoh about Joseph, who was in prison, how he interpreted his dream and how he got out. So Pharaoh sent for him and brought him in the king's court. And he told him the dream, and Joseph was very careful to let him know how God was going to use Pharaoh, and that he needed to, that there was going to be a famine, and that it needed to be set aside grain, 1/5 grain would be kept back more from the people, and they would put it in a storage bin, so to speak. And that's what occurred, and he made Joseph the administrator, and he made him second in command. It's like the vice president. So everywhere Pharaoh went, if Joseph went, he was behind him in the second chariot, and they had to call out his name and everything and bow down to Joseph just like he was a regular Egyptian. So it gave him a real long name, which I won't try to mention, pronounce. But so this came to pass. And pretty soon, just like Joseph's dream, God gave Joseph they ran out of food and famine started on the land, but Egypt was prepared. So we pick up the story here where the flow is going to be about Jacob and the 11 other sons. They're going to be moving back and forth in this story. And Joseph wants, so when the famine started, Jacob gets a wake-up call and says, I hear they got food in Egypt. I want you to go up there and get some. So he sends a couple of his boys, his sons, up there to get the grain for Jacob and his 12 sons of Israel, their 11 sons of Israel. So we pick up the story there. If you want to see the more long out version about when I talked about it, just fast forward back a couple of chapters there and you'll pick up on it. But I kind of want to bring you the overview of the picture as we get into these questions. So let's get started. Jacob and his sons in Egypt. It says, how did Jacob and his family procure food during the famine? 10 of Jacob's sons went to buy corn and grain in Egypt. Genesis 42, 1 through 5. So let's just read that. That's Genesis 42. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, why are you looking upon one another? He said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither to buy us from thence, that we may live and not die. That's pretty bad. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy the corn in Egypt. So all 10 of them went down. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob didn't send with him, for he said, lest peradventure the same thing that happened to Joseph might happen to my next beloved son, Benjamin. So the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came for the famine that was in the land of Canaan. Let's read a couple questions here. How did Joseph behave to his brethren when he saw them? He made himself strange to them and spoke roughly to them, but not from a spirit of revenge. And what did he accuse them of? Of being spies. But he's really, he's grilling them a little bit because he's getting ready. Joseph knows he's getting ready to tell them who he is. And he's getting a little money for his pound of flesh here before he does it. On what condition did Joseph say he would see them again, that they should bring Benjamin with them? And how did he make sure that they would return? He kept Simeon a prisoner. So let's read that. And it says, and Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all people of the land, and he was the go-to guy. Joseph's brethren came up there, bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. This is interesting. I didn't think the Jews bowed down to anybody, but evidently they bowed down to him, so they recognized his authority. But from a secular point, not from a spiritual point. So perhaps that's unusual to see that verse. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange to them, and spoke roughly to them. And he said, where you come from? And he said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. Tell you what, I'm going to switch over to easy English, because this is kind of intimate, so let's go here. Okay. We'll start again. Now, Joseph was the man who had authority in the land. He was the man who sold food to all the people. Joseph's brothers arrived in Egypt, and they bowed down to him. They put their faces to the ground. I want to check that out a little bit. Let's see what it. Okay, that's the dream passing up by. Joseph had the dream that they were all going to bow to him. So the prophecy is starting to come to pass, this part of it. And let's see what reference one is. Oh, he's telling more about what that dream was like. And let's see what this one is. Okay. All right. As soon as Joseph saw the men, he knew that they were his brothers. I think one of the reasons is, the Egyptians were clean cut. They had bald heads. They cut their hair bald, and they had earrings and stuff like that, and they were clean shaven. Of course, Jews could not shave the corners of their beard. They had to keep a beard, and they couldn't shave the corners. And plus, probably didn't have a lot of razor blades back then. Finishing verse 7, but he did not tell him who he was. The Bible talks about we entertain angels unaware. And he spoke words to them that were not kind. He asked them, "Where do you come from?" Like he didn't know. They replied, "From the land of Canaan. We have come to buy food." The land of Canaan, I don't know if you know that, from Noah's day, it was Shem, Japheth, and Jephthah. And Shem was the stem, or the Hebrew part, of the three sons. But Ham was one of Noah's sons, and he got in trouble when Noah got drunk and didn't cover him up. So Noah couldn't pronounce a curse on Ham because God had blessed him and his sons. So he blessed his grandson, and his name was Cain. So I think this is how Canaan land got started. This is before the curse started taking effect. So Cain, this is where Cain settled, and eventually somehow it fell in the outs with the Hebrews. So here it's called Canaan land, the land of Cain. Okay. And it says here, he spoke to his brother through a man who could not speak Hebrew. That is why they did not recognize him. So he's still speaking Egyptian to them. So Joseph remembered his dream about his brothers, and he said to them, "You have come to see where you can attack our land." So he's making them out to be spies. And they replied, "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. We are not enemies." But Joseph said, "No, you not have come to see where you can attack us." Thinking, you probably heard about, I don't know if this is before or after, when God sent Joshua and some spy out the land, and they came back. Only 2 came back and said, "We can take it." And the other 10 said, "No, there's giants in the land. We're like grasshoppers in their sight." So it's got something to do with the tradition, a suspicion the Egyptians have because they heard about this tale. So, and of course, they are scared of the God of Israel. Joseph said, "It's like I told you, you've come to see where you can attack us. You are enemies." So he sets up this bogus con. Joseph says, "I will see what you say is true. This is how I will see it. As Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place until your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you to get your brother, and I will keep the other brothers in prison. Then I will know what you said is true. If you're not saying what is true, then as sure as Pharaoh lives, you are enemies." What did that note say? Okay, he meant what he said. So Joseph put his brothers in prison for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do what I say, then you will stay alive, because I believe in God." So he reveals a little bit to them about him believing God. But of course, they didn't know the Egyptian God was nothing like Hebrew. But he let that slip so they could get a little curiosity going there, I guess. Joseph said, "If you're honest men, let one of your brothers stay in prison. The other brothers can go back to Canaan and take food back with you because your families are hungry. But you must return to Egypt, and you must bring your youngest brother to me. Then I will know what you say is true, and you will not die." And the brothers said, "Okay, we'll do what you say." So they started talking to one another, and they said, "This is happening because we did to Joseph." So they think it is happening, but they think they were right, but they couldn't prove it. "He asked us not to kill him. We saw how sad he was, but he would not listen. This is why we're in trouble." Reuben said, "I told you to do no wrong to that boy. He's cashing stamps on the rest of the brothers. He says, but you wouldn't listen. Now we got to go through all this stuff. Joseph had a man who could speak Hebrew, so not that Joseph, he didn't want him to know he was Hebrew. So he spoke to this servant in the Egyptian language. The servant then spoke to the brothers in Hebrew. Joseph understood what the brothers were saying, but he didn't know that he knew the language. So he heard them talking amongst themselves. So Joseph, it was almost too much for Joseph, and so he turned away from it and he started to weep. But then he first turned back again. Then he spoke to them again about Joseph had Simeon had taken from them, and the servants tied Simeon's hands. This happened in front of the other brothers. Wow. Put the cuffs on Simeon right there. Then Joseph told servants to fill his brothers' bags with food, put each man's silver back into his bag, so he didn't even take the money. And he told them to give the brothers food for their journey, and the servants did what Joseph told them. Then the brothers put their food on their donkeys and they left. They traveled until it was night, then they stopped. One of the brothers opened his bag to get food for his donkey, and he saw all this silver inside. So he says, they have given back my silver. Here it is in my bag. And they were frightened because what has God done to us? They thought God was trying to set them up for what they'd done to Joseph. Well, in a way, he is. So some time passed, and they arrived at Canaan. They went to their father Jacob, and they told Jacob everything that happened to them. Then they said, there is a man who is Lord over the land. He spoke words to us that were not kind, and he said that we were enemies, Dad. He said that we were looking for a place to attack Egypt. Of course, Jacob says, hogwash. Why in the world would he say that? He says, we're honest men. We're not enemies. So he says, we're 12 brothers, all the sons of one father. That would be Abraham, praise God. One brother is not with us anymore, and the youngest brother is with our father in Canaan. Then the man who is Lord over, I think when he says, one brother is with our father in Canaan, I mean he's dead. He died. He thinks Joseph is that son that's with his dad, with grandpa. That's a beautiful thing. Then the man who is Lord over the land said, I want to know if you're honest men. Is that what we're going to do? You leave one of your brothers here with me, then take food for your hungry families and leave. But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so I will know that you are not enemies. And I will know that you are honest men. Then I will give your brother back to you, and you can buy and sell things in the land. Boy, see how cool family was back then? Talk about blood in, blood out. They were tight. They were really tight. The brothers emptied their bags. In their bags they found each man's silver. The brothers and their fathers saw the bags of silver, and they were frightened. Their father Jacob said to them, you have taken my children away from me. Joseph is not here anymore, and Simeon is not here anymore. And now you want to take Benjamin? You got to be crazy. Think you're crazy? I'm not going to do that. Then Reuben said to Jacob, I will bring Benjamin back to you. If I don't, then you can kill both of me and my sons. Trust me, with Benjamin, I'll bring him back. But Jacob said, my son is not going. He's not going to go with you because his brother is dead. He's the only one left. He's another youngest. Something bad may happen on your journey. I'm an old man. If something had happened to him, I would die. I would die because I would be so sad. Well, he said that about Joseph, but he still lived, right? So time passed now. That's a cool word. Time passed, and it came to pass. That's a study in itself. Anytime you read something as it came to pass, it's I don't see it in my concordance, but I'd like to do a study on the phrase, and it came to pass. What that means is a confirmation that the prophecy was accurate. So, and the famine was still bad in the land. So they sat there for a while till, I guess, Jacob, let's read it. Jacob and his household ate all the food from Egypt. So Jacob said, go back to Egypt and buy some more food. But Judah said, unless your brother is with you, you will not see my face again. You got to let Benjamin come with us. Then we'll go buy the food. But if you don't send Benjamin, we will not go, because the man said to us, unless your brother is with you, you will not see my face again. Israel, that is Jacob, asked. See, right here, we see a clarification. In verse 6 here, Israel, that is Jacob, in parentheses, it's letting some of us know that you perhaps don't understand that Jacob and Israel are basically one and the same person. Here they're bringing this clarity out. That's why I like about the English. It could have been a little confusing with the King James. Why do you bring this trouble on me? You should not have told the man that you had another brother. The brother said, the man asked us many questions about our family. He wanted to know if you were still alive and did I have another brother. We just answered his questions. We didn't know what he would say. So he says, bring your brothers here. Then Judah said to Israel, that is Jacob, send the boy with me and we will go at once. Then we and you and all our children will not die. So they had to make a choice. Dad's fear over losing his second son, which he really hadn't lost the first one, or the necessity of them going, because they're all going to starve. Everybody's going to die if somebody don't do something. We might have to make that choice sometime. But I guess what? Jesus said, greater love than no man, than a man laid down his life for his friends. That goes to all you soldiers that passed on. Thank you for your service, y'all. Thank you for it. Judah said, I will make you a promise. I will keep Benjamin safe. He will be with me. He's trying to give him that assurance, and I'll bring him back to you. You know what's cool? You know Jacob is an old man here. Israel is an old man. And his brothers his sons are much bigger and stronger, but they're still under this beautiful understanding about the family, and that he is the authority, regardless if he's physically not as good shape as the sons. I said, so let's go to 10. So he says, now what do you want to do? We've wasted much time talking about this. We could have gone to Egypt and back a million times. Then their father, Israel, Jacob, said to them, you must take Benjamin, do what I tell you, put some of the best things from the land in your bags, and take them to the man as a gift. Take some, stuff, okay. Jacob said, take 2 times the amount of silver with you. This is because you must give back the silver that they put back into your bags. It may have been a mistake. Ooh. Also take your brother Benjamin and go back to the man at once. He said, we'll take him. So I don't guess Benjamin had a say in this. Because you'd think maybe Benjamin thinking he might not come back. So he brings the Lord into this matter, and he says, I pray God Almighty will help you. I'm praying that when you go to this man, God will show you mercy and may let your older brother and Benjamin return back with you. As for me, if I lose my sons, then I lose them. All for one and one for all. So the brothers took the gifts, and they took twice as much silver. They also took Benjamin, and they hurried to Egypt. When they arrived there, they went to Joseph. Joseph saw that Benjamin was with them. He said to a servant who worked in the house, take these men to my house. Kill an animal and prepare it for a meal. These men will eat with me at noon. Remember, he's vice president of the whole land. The servant did as Joseph told him, took the men to Joseph's house. So they were frightened in verse 18 when the servant took them to Joseph's house. So he's bringing them into the big palace there. He brought us here because of the silver. So you see the enemy working in the minds of people. They're thinking all the worst. And I can believe why there's some gist to that. But he says, someone put it back when we came here the first time. He wants to attack us, and he will take us to be slaves, and he will take away our donkeys. Oh my gosh, going to take away their donkeys. Because that was a source of living, like a camel. So the brothers went to Joseph's servant, and they spoke to him at the door to Joseph's house. They said, please, sir, The first time we came here, we came to buy food. But on our journey back, we stopped because it was night. We opened our bags, and each of us found the same amount of silver that we brought to Egypt. We brought it to pay for the food. It was in our bags, so we have brought the silver back with us. We also have brought more silver. We also brought it so that we can buy food. We do not who put the silver back into our bags. The servant says, don't worry, everything is all right. Just be cool. Do not be afraid. Your God, the God of your fathers, put the silver there. I received your silver. Then the servants brought Simeon out to his brothers. And I know that was must have been pretty nice there. And Simeon says, oh man, I didn't think he was coming back. I've been waiting to know what was going on. I wonder what else Simeon was thinking while he was in jail, but Joseph didn't tell about what was going on. He gave them water to wash his feet, and he gave them food for their donkeys. The brothers got their gifts together. They made ready when Joseph would come at noon. So they heard that they were to eat there. So Joseph arrived, and they gave him the gifts that they had brought into his house, and they bowed down before him. They bowed down to the ground. Okay. Joseph says, well, are you guys all right? He says, how's your old father whom you told me about? Is he still alive? There's hidden words there, right? Y'all, listen to that. The brothers replied, your servant, our father, is still alive, and he is well. And they bowed low to Joseph. Joseph looked about and saw his brother Benjamin, who was his mother's son. Well, they might have had different mothers. So Joseph asked, is this your youngest brother? Is this the one you told me about? And Joseph said to Benjamin, God be kind to you, my son. Joseph loved his brother very much, and he hurried away because he wanted to start crying. He went into his own room and wept there. Aw, that's a beautiful Joseph. That's beautiful. You know, he starts thinking about his family and all the justifiable reasons how they threw him in the ditch and how they sold him into slavery because they were so afraid. They didn't understand a dream from God. Do any of us understand dreams from God unless he gives us the interpretation? So when he got through crying, he washed his face, he came back to his brothers, and he stopped himself from eating. He says, guys, eat up. So Joseph sat away from his brothers, and he ate there. The brothers sat together, and the Egyptians who ate there sat together. So they were segregated there. Egyptians could not eat with Hebrews because that would make Egyptians ashamed. Now that's interesting. We know in the Jewish culture, it's a little bit different. I'm reminded of Peter. God wanted to save Cornelius in the book of Acts, and he had to give Cornelius a vision. He was a Gentile who did many nice things for the Hebrew people there. And God wanted to save him, but an angel couldn't do it. So he gave Cornelius a vision about Peter in it. And then he gave Peter a vision about Cornelius. And they brought them together to make a long story short. But Peter couldn't, when he arrived back to Cornelius to minister to him the grace of God, he makes the remark, he says, before I couldn't come into, our Jewish laws forbid us from coming in across your threshold. He says, however, God gave me a vision, and and with a bunch of cattle and things, and like a sheet, and it was let down. Peter saw all these cattle, and the voice from heaven told Peter, says, rise, Peter, kill and eat. Well, Peter says, not so, because the animals displayed in the vision were what the Jews viewed as unclean. But the voice said to Peter, he says, what God has called common, don't call unclean, meaning it's okay. Drop all the rituals, all the Hebrew traditions, which is going to be a big problem for the first Jews in the church. The Messianic Jews had a hard trouble, but they got a download for Paul, and finally it took off. But still, he told Cornelius that he couldn't cross the threshold, but since he got this revelation from God, he now knows that Cornelius and all the Gentiles are not unclean, and that salvation is for everyone. So, but in this case, we see the Egyptians are ashamed to eat with the Jews. And back in Peter's day, it was the other way around. The Jews were ashamed to eat with Gentiles before they got the revelation of common salvation for all of us. Okay, verse 33. The brothers sat in front of Joseph. The servants told them to sit in special places, the oldest to the youngest, and the brothers were surprised. And the servants gave the brothers food from Joseph's table. They gave Benjamin 5 times more food than his brothers. So the brothers ate and drank wine with Joseph. Excuse me. Joseph told his servant, fill the men's bags, give them as much food as their animals can carry, and put each man's silver in the top of the bag. Well, this time, I couldn't believe it. It'd be like hitting the lottery, you know. Huh. They had to be thinking, man, is he setting us up good? What is he waiting for? Why don't he just lower the boom? So they were very, I guess, very being tormented about this peculiar treatment. The highest guy in Egypt next to Pharaoh. He says, then take my silver cup, Joseph's personal silver cup, put it in the top of the youngest man's bag. Put it with the silver that he brought to pay for his food, and the servant did as Joseph said. This point, when he's telling them to load this wagon train up to go back home, the reason he's putting this silver cup is because he's not through with them yet. And we'll explain it here, the word will. Morning came, and the men went on their journey with their donkeys. They didn't get very far from the city, and then Joseph put out a posse after them. Go after those men, and when you find them, say, why have you done such bad things? We did only good things for you. You have taken my master's own cup. It is the cup that he drinks from, made it personal, and uses it to know what will happen. What you did is wrong. So Joseph's servant went after the men. He found them. He didn't ask questions. He said the words that Joseph told him. But the men says, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. He says, we even gave the silver back we found in our bags. We found it returned to Canaan. He tells that story. He says, so why in the world would we snatch a silver or gold from your master's house? Don't make any sense. If any of us have this cup, they will die, and the rest of us will become my Lord's slave. He was swearing an oath there to the family. That's pretty heavy. The servant said, very well, it will be as you say. Whoever has the cup will become my slave. The rest of you will go free. Each man quickly put his bag on the ground and opened it. Of course, now Joseph already knows where he told the servant to put that cup, so that servant knew which bag it was in. He probably said, which one's Benjamin's bag? Because they weren't going to go through all those bags. And he finished with the youngest man's bag, and he found the cup in Benjamin's bag. Well, I guess it was wrong. I guess they went through all of them, and they made Benjamin last. When this happened, they did what Jews do back then. They rent their garments, tore their clothes. He tore them because they were very upset. The next thing, another part of that ritual is they throw a dust or ground over their head. And that's another ritual that they have. They put their bags back on the donkeys and they returned to the city. Okay, now we're getting ready to get down here. Joseph was still in his house, and Judah and his brothers arrived, and they threw themselves on the ground in front of Joseph, like, we don't know what's going on. Joseph still keeps up the masquerade. He says, what have you done? Do you know about a man like me? I can find out what people do. I got connections. Judah said, I don't know what to say to you. There's nothing we can do. We can't show you what we did not do. You know, that's like the innocent to proven guilty. Sometimes It's supposed to be innocent to be proven guilty, but that's not how it works out in our system. You're always guilty, and you stay in jail till you prove you're innocent. I think it ought to be the other way around. God knows that we have done no wrong. We are your slaves. We are all your slaves. One man owns the bag where you found your cup. He is your slave too. But Joseph said, I will not do a thing like that. Only the man whose bag contained the cup will be my slave. So he stretches it out again. He says, the rest of you can return to your father. You may go as friends. Wow. And of course, the hook there is, Judas says to him, please, my Lord, let me speak to you. You are like Pharaoh, but please do not be angry with me. So you're understanding you did this. You feel like you broke it down from a murder charge to involuntary manslaughter. He says, my Lord asked us, do you have a father or a brother? And he replied, we have a father, and he's old. And he has a young son. The son was born when our father was old. His brother is dead, and he is the only remaining son of his mother, and his father loves him. He says, look, bring him here so I can take a look at him. He said, the boy cannot leave his father. If he leaves him, his father will die. But you said your youngest brother must come with you. So he's getting to the truth. He wants his family to confess what they did to him. That's what it's all boiling down to. You see that? He says, we returned to our father and we told him what you said. So once again, and time passed, there it is. And our father said, go back and buy some more food. So he's rehearsing what he said before to him, the conversation. So we pick it up here. He said, I could go back to my father, but my father lives because of this boy. And if the boy is not with us, then my father will die. He will die because he is so sad. He will die because we did not bring the boy back. He will see that the boy is not with us, and he will die because we did not bring the boy back. He'll be so sad. I promised my father I'd keep the boy safe. I said I'd bring the boy back. If I don't, then you can say that it was because of me. You can say this for the rest of my life. Please let me stay here. Let me stay as your slave instead of the boy. And let the boy go back with his brothers. I can't go back to my father, not if the boy's not with me. No, do not let me see how sad my father will be. After Judas said this, Joseph could not stop himself from crying. So he got everybody out of the room because he was so weeping because of this drama that he was carrying on. So there was no one with Joseph except his brothers. Oh, okay. He said, all you Egyptians, all my servants, out of the house. It's just going to be these brothers here and all of them. So Joseph wept loudly, and the Egyptians are outside, and they're saying, what's going on out there? He must have really been wailing, Joseph was. And it says, and Pharaoh's household knew about it. Joseph said to his brothers, so he looks at them, and they're all freaking out, don't know why. He's crying, tears are running down. I think in the movie, the beautiful movie in Joseph, they do a scene where he's there with them, and they're at the table, and he starts taking off his Egyptian makeup and his hair and everything. He gets plain and simple with them, like a Hebrew person would be. And they're starting to look at, they don't know what he's doing. Is this somebody in drag or what, you know? So they're all freaking out. Then he says to him, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But his brothers, they said, what's he talking about? He said, because they were scared, it says, because Joseph was with them. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they did this, he said, I am your brother Joseph. I am the one that you sold into Egypt. Wow, we'll take a pause there for a minute. How they must have felt. How surprised. Wow, what a scene that was. I am the one that you sold into Egypt. reminds me of when Jesus returns. I'll set this up for you. Jesus is on a hill of Jerusalem, and he starts talking to Jerusalem like he would talk to a city. He says, "O Jerusalem, I wanted to gather you together as a chicken does when it has its little chickens, little bitty chickens. They all gather under they follow the chicken around, the baby chickens do. He said, I would have gathered you like that to me. He says, but you wouldn't come. I walked before you. I did all these wonderful miracles with all the signs and wonders that Messiah is supposed to have. But your leaders, your administrators, they didn't want to. They were too concerned about their job and their position. So the Messiah that they're serving, the Bible talks about the servant is not greater than his master, or the master whom one sends. They got in that mode. So the next thing that happened, he says, though you wouldn't come. He says, because you wouldn't come when I wanted you to, in your first visitation as your Messiah. He says, your house, the whole house is going to become desolate. You're going to become your house has become a desolation, shame, reproach, until, he said, until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. This happened 2,000 years ago, and Jesus is still waiting for them to say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So when Jesus returns at the end of Revelation and saves the day, they call out on the name of Jesus the Messiah, and Jesus shows up, the champion that he is, and he saves the day. And as they're rejoicing in this, the victory, one of the Jewish elders there, or the rabbis, sees, I have something similar, so like a little bruise, okay? And he happens to notice. He says, how, my Messiah, how did you get those terrible scars in both your hands? And Jesus says, I was wounded in the house of my friends. So when Joseph said to his brothers in verse 4, come close to me, when they did this, he said, Joseph, I am the one that you sold into Egypt. And I'm sure that's how these Jews will feel the day when Jesus came, and returned and got them out of all that trouble and showed great love for them. They saw those wounds on Jesus' hands. He says, I was wounded when you crucified me. You wounded me, but you couldn't kill me. You wanted to. The devil wanted you to kill me. But he said, my Father raised me from the dead. So I relate that verse, that scene, when I saw this, the same feeling that Joseph said, I am the one that you sold into Egypt. This is what Jesus felt when he could tell his fellow Jews at that time, at the end of Revelation there, he says, I got this because of you. And I'm happy to say, you wounded me here, but that's all in the past. Let's get started on this brand new life I want Israel to have and always wanted to have. Okay, now do not worry. You do not be angry with yourselves because you sold me. He says, now forget it. Don't be carrying on. Don't be angry with yourselves because God sent me. He's saying, you understand? Do you understand that? Joseph had some spiritual chops. He understood about the things of God, which his religious brothers and even his father couldn't understand. He sent me in front of you. He sent me so that I could save people from dying. This is what Jesus did when God sent Jesus before he died on the cross to tell them, I'm he. Look, check out the signs, all the signs and wonders. But they wouldn't do it. And a lot of people died. Verse 6, There's been a famine for 2 years in this land, and no food will grow for another 5. So the dream was 7 years, so that means that they are 2 years into this famine. So from the time Pharaoh set Joseph's hand preparing for this, there were 7 years of plenty. That's 7, and he was 30 there, so that made him 37. And so with these 2 years to end that, so that makes Joseph 39 years old. Okay, he said, but God sent me in front of you so that you would stay alive and make sure that your descendants live. That's what it's all about. Yeah. So you did not send me here. God sent me here. He made me an officer to Pharaoh. I have more authority than any other officer. I have authority over all Egypt, and I rule all Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord over all Egypt. Come to me now. Come now. Jesus says, what is it, the great invitation? Jesus stood in the feast that day. He said, whomsoever will, let him come to me. Let him come to me freely. Oh, beautiful. Hallelujah. He says, and you will be near me. I will give you everything that you need. Jesus has done that for us, because there are still 5 years of famine to come. If you don't come, you and your household will have nothing. But you can all see that I am Joseph, so can my brother Benjamin. Tell him of my father. He boasts a little bit what's going on with him. And then he hugged his brothers, and they sent him away. So Joseph kissed all his brothers, and they wept, and they probably yucked it up a little bit. Remember old times? So Pharaoh hears that Joseph's brothers are in Egypt. He knew he was a Jew, so he says, the fam's here. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, tell your brothers, put food on your donkey's back and return to Canaan. Bring your dad, your family, bring them to me. I will give you the best land in Egypt, and I will have everything she can give you. Pharaoh, you must all tell them, do this. Take some carts from Egypt for your wives. And he put out the whole dog for him. And he says, the best of everything in Egypt will be yours at 20. So sons of Israel went back and gave the message. And so Joseph, and it just keeps talking about all what he gave them. Okay. So it says, so the brothers left Egypt, and when they arrived in Canaan, where their father Jacob was. And they told him Joseph was alive. So the brothers, Joseph said to him, Jacob saw the corpse sitting back. So Israel, that is Jacob, said, I'm sure my son Joe. So we move on here. And so Jacob left Canaan and took everything. And God spoke to Israel in a dream. He said, Jacob, Jacob. And he replied, I am God of your fathers. This all happened after this Joseph scene. Do not be afraid to go to Egypt. I will make you have many descendants there. I will go to Egypt with you. I will bring you back again. Don't forget that part. I will bring you back again. And you will be with Joseph when he died. And I'll just cut to the chase here. And he took all his family to Egypt, and it goes into that. So, as we start the next journey about this, of Abraham and his sons, it's going to say a key verse, and it says, and there arose a king who knew not Joseph. Joseph and all the grace and the Pharaoh, that all passed away, and then we start getting into the jealousy of, they come to Pharaoh, and they tell him the Hebrews are so blessed, they're having more kids than we are. And what happened was the Hebrews started mixing it up with the Egyptians and compromised their working time and things so they could get some of the spoils and the riches of Egypt. And how they did this sometime, they parsed out themselves to work for them. It says rather than collateral loan, they would prostitute themselves out to work for the Egyptians. And so eventually this got out of balance, and they start having children. So finally somebody whispers in Pharaoh's ear. It says, they're getting more people we are, but we still have them working for us. So eventually a transition to the new Pharaoh and all that commotion going on, the Jews eventually became slaves. They lived in Goshen, but they became slaves to Egypt. They sold their labors and their services, where at first they just rented it out. Pretty soon it got worse. And this is where God begins to raise up Moses out of there, and they're going to come out of the land. So I hope you liked this story. I sure did. It was a cool thing. I really loved it. So, wow, that's pretty long one, 55 minutes, but I wanted to get through the chapter. So, and it really blessed me. So now you know more about what the Bible says about Joseph and that long, long thing from Joseph's dream until he ends up dying in a good old age with Abraham. I'm not Abraham, but Israel, Jacob. It was a beautiful family. The transition of this great country, Israel, that God has chosen to be his administrators at the end of days. Israel will be the go-to nation. Of course, after the church is gone, okay, we'll rule and reign with them, but they'll take care of business down here, and we'll be with Jesus wherever he is. So we wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. So, ta-ta from the hill. This is Brother Jack signing out. Bye-bye.